Welcome to This Explainer. Have you ever wondered why you just can't seem to put your phone down? It's a modern mystery, right? We're all living through it every single day. You sit down on the couch for what you think is just a second, you open an app, and whoosh, suddenly an entire hour has just vanished into thin air. Today, we're unraveling the absolutely fascinating underlying science behind this exact phenomenon, the dopamine loop, and how digital scrolling rewires the brain.
So, why does real life suddenly feel so boring? It hits a little too close to home, doesn't it? Just think about that jarring, kind of uncomfortable transition we experience daily. You spend 30 minutes swiping through these incredibly dynamic, loud, super fast paced videos. Then you finally put the phone down and you look around your living room or out the window. It's quiet, nothing's flashing at you, there's no catchy background music. It just feels, well, dull. Why does everyday reality suddenly feel so incredibly boring after a good scroll session? Well, the answer to this isn't just about entertainment, and it's definitely not about a lack of willpower. It's fundamentally about biology. Okay, let's dive into this with Section 1, the scrolling trap. To really understand this trap, we gotta look at the format. We often think of our phones as just mere tools, but the truth is, the apps we use are precisely engineered environments. They're designed from the ground up to capture and hold our attention. Reels and really any short-form continuous feed equal rapid stimulation. See, when you're watching these quick videos, you aren't just passively consuming content like you would, say, a long book. You're subjecting your brain to a continuous, unending barrage of high stimulation. Every single swipe delivers something completely new. A punchline, a surprising visual, a new song. It's literally a barrage directed straight at your brain's reward center. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why it's so incredibly hard to look away. Your brain naturally loves novelty, and these feeds, they serve it up by the microsecond. This brings us right to Section 2, the dopamine loop. So, we're moving away from the screen itself for a moment and looking directly at the chemistry happening inside your head. The dopamine loop is the cycle where digital scrolling triggers continuous chemical rewards in the brain. Now, I want you to think of dopamine not just as a simple pleasure chemical, but actually as a seeking and reward chemical. It's the chemical that motivates you to act. Opening that app creates an immediate, highly potent biological reaction. You swipe, you see something novel, and your brain immediately releases a hit of dopamine saying, yes, that was awesome, let's find more. So what do you naturally do? You swipe again. It creates this perfect, highly effective, completely self-sustaining loop of action and reward. Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer scale of the difference. Think about everyday life dopamine, that perfectly normal chemical reward you get from natural human activities. Things like taking a walk, reading a physical book, completing a chore, or having a quiet conversation. It's a nice, steady, sustainable, low-level release. But then, compare that to a Reels dopamine spike. It absolutely towers over the baseline. Short-form digital scrolling causes an incredibly unnatural, massive spike in your brain's chemistry. It's this absolute flood of chemical rewards that everyday life simply was never evolved or designed to provide. And that leads us to a really crucial point in Section 3, rewiring your brain. Because your brain is highly adaptable, these massive spikes actually have structural consequences. Let's see how this builds, step by step, inside your own neural pathways. Imagine you sit down on the couch at the end of a long day. Step 1, you start to scroll. Seems entirely harmless, right? But immediately, step 2 kicks in. Your brain experiences that massive, unnatural dopamine spike we just talked about. Now here's where the structural danger lies. Step 3, your brain rewires. To handle this overwhelming, constant flood of dopamine, your brain literally downregulates its own dopamine receptors. It builds a tolerance. Your brain basically says, whoa, okay, this is way too much stimulation. I need to numb myself a bit just to keep things balanced. Which leads inevitably, and unfortunately, to step 4, you crave more. Because your biological baseline has now been altered, you actually need that high-intensity scrolling just to feel a normal baseline level of satisfaction.
Which perfectly explains Section 4, when reality feels boring.
So the crucial point is, we bring this full circle when we look at these two competing environments side by side. On one hand, you have Reels providing constant, towering spikes and forcing a literal structural rewiring of your neural pathways. You're training your brain to expect absolute fireworks every 3 seconds. On the other hand, you have real life, operating at a slow, natural, biological baseline. Real life unfolds slowly. It requires patience. It requires effort. And because your brain has physically and chemically adapted to the extreme hyperstimulation of your digital feed, everyday life simply cannot compete anymore.
A walk in the park or a quiet dinner feels incredibly boring because your downregulated dopamine receptors are essentially wearing dark sunglasses. They're completely unable to register the subtle, beautiful light of normal, everyday joy.
Which brings us to our final parting thought. I want you to genuinely notice your own brain right now. How will it feel the exact moment this explainer ends? Will your thumb automatically twitch, ready to return to your feed to chase that next spike? As the screen fades to black, pay close attention to that craving. Because understanding the loop, seeing the biology behind the curtain, is the very first and absolutely most important step to breaking it. Thank you so much for learning with me today. Until next time, stay curious and stay aware of how you scroll.